President Obama has proposed 4 consecutive budgets with more than trillion-dollar deficits. We have to begin to work away at that kind of deficit. We can't propose an annual budget where we bring in $3 trillion in revenue and spend $4.5 trillion. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for your businesses. The bank's only going to allow you to run up the credit card for so long before they say enough's enough. And you understand that our bank is the Chinese, it's other world markets that are buying our bonds because they think we're going to make good on them. But at the point at which our debt tips us into a place where Greece is at, or Spain, where our credit is worth nothing, where you're Germany in the 1930s and it makes more sense to burn your money for heat than to take a wheelbarrow of it down to buy a loaf of bread. I mean, we can get there. This great country, the greatest republic in the history of the planet, isn't here by accident. We have to carefully nurture it, and you can't leave $15 trillion in debt on the books for very long. We have to start to shave away at it. Obamacare, the president said it would cost $900 billion when it was passed. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office now says $1.7 trillion. That's the cost of Obamacare. Now imagine that. Now that doesn't include what it's going to cost the state of Nebraska. Milliman said over 10 years, the increased people on Medicaid will cost the state of Nebraska $500 million. That's for here in Nebraska. That's real money in Nebraska. We try to balance our budget. We have a constitutional amendment that says we have to. We should have one of those at the federal level. But an even bigger problem in my mind, and I know you've all experienced this, is the regulatory regime in our country that is now stifling business growth. No matter what business you're in, if you look back to how you were doing it 10 or 20 years ago, you're thinking, I have to fill out more forms, have more government oversight than I've ever had before. That's why in the introduction when Rich says Bruning sued the EPA 20 times, I have. They keep coming in with regulation after regulation. We have to get back to a culture where we don't expect the government to take care of us, where big nanny government isn't regulating us into a place where we can't be successful. You know how to grow your business. You don't need the federal government involved in every aspect of it. So I think that's the issue of our day. How do we shrink this thing down? And I'm not saying we don't take care of the least among us. We have to do that. It's in our, as Nebraskans, it's in our culture to take care of the least among us. Of course we're going to do that. But the federal government is spending, it's the regulatory regime that's not about taking care of the least among us. It's the GSA knuckleheads that buy a clown to have at their conference. A clown? I mean, there are changes we can make in the way we do business at the federal level. It can be done. I can assure you, if you watched me or any of my state colleagues as we travel, if I'm on the state dime, which I haven't been for a long time because of the nature of politics, but when I was on the state dime, if I would have a hamburger and fries and a beer, you would find me asking the waitress for 2 tabs, as it should be. One for the hamburger and fries and one for the beer. Now, it didn't look like the federal guys get this, right, when they have $1,900 room tabs. Here in Nebraska, it's almost a punchline. We would never do business that way. Nobody does business that way. We do it the way the law requires. We can change the culture in Washington. That's my goal, is to change the culture in Washington. Push back against the regulatory regime and make sure you can be successful. That's how we're going to bring our nation back into a time of prosperity. Let business people grow their businesses.